Well, let me introduce myself very briefly. My name's Kenny L, founder of Elevate. We've been around for the past 3 years. We've seen the 2017, the growth of the blockchain, of the crypto market in China. And our firm, we've been working with the top 5 public blockchain projects in China, really fuel their growth. And we've seen I would say the downfall last year in the market. And obviously there's a lot that we learned. And currently in 2019, we can see that the industry is maturing a lot. There's a lot of information, a lot of news, a lot of technology companies building the ecosystem around compliance, regulation, right? More transparency. So I would like this opportunity for each of the panelists to introduce themselves. Start off with Mike.
So I'm an expat living here in Bangkok for the past decade. My company focuses on doing apps and websites. We are specialized in behavioral design, leveraging cognitive bias in order to promote engagement for our customers, which include Fortune 500s and some of Thailand's largest corporations. If you've been on the SkyTrain and used the loyalty app for that, we're responsible for that. If you've purchased in a supermarket over here online, you probably use something that we've built. And really happy to be here with the rest of the esteemed colleagues.
How about you, AJ?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is AJ, and today I'm representing FX1, a company that is looking at crypto fusion, which is a new field where we're looking at altcoin or a variety of different coin, moving up from altcoin or with stablecoin to entry into the Forex market, right? But as a person, I like to prefer probably more so based around storytelling, brand storytelling. I feel like whether you're talking about blockchain, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, any of the emerging tech out there, what's really missing is you've got a lot of tech heads, you've got a lot of guys with great ideas and CTO-ish, but what's really missing in the market is a lack of humanization and people looking at the bigger picture, right? So I basically Steve Jobs that shit, right? So just try to bring that element of humanity and humanization and bring that value back to a technical narrative or an intense narrative. That's me.
Hi everyone, my name is Unenburen. You guys can call me Uchka. I'm from Mongolia, and while we are in the marketing panel, let me take a few seconds to market my country. We are the 17th largest country in the world, second least densely populated area after Greenland, and yes, Genghis Khan is my grandfather, and no, we don't ride horses to work. Yeah, my company, Bitmonex, we work closely with one of the largest exchanges called Bittrex. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
And Weber?
Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Weber Wu. I come from China, and I started a blockchain business in 2003 from mining. And from xt.com, it's started in the middle of 2018. And I will show you more about it later. Thank you.
All right. So this is quite an interesting conference. It's the first I've been to where we talk a lot about influencer marketing. Like what I said earlier, you know, we've seen the rise of the blockchain industry in 2017. 2018 was a huge dip for us. 2019, you know, it's been a quite exciting year. The year is almost wrapping up. But one thing I noticed is there's definitely more transparency in this industry. A lot more solid technology coming out. Okay, the conversation we had earlier was quite interesting because we talked about all the good side of the marketing, but what about the dark side of it? So let's start off with AJ.
Great, awesome, great. Yeah, so we had a really, really good conversation in the speakers lounge before we came up here. And one of the things that I think we need to talk about, you probably all been to a lot of conferences where people talk about a variety of different marketing metrics and models out there. And one of the hottest topics right now is influencer and content marketing. And even earlier this morning, I was hearing Aloysia and everybody else on the panel talk about influencer marketing. One thing I don't see happening that I think is actually a major concern, not just for me, for the industry, is how influencers are unchecked, right? And there are a lot of people who have, whether they're micro-influencers or mega-influencers, their opinion matters amongst their followers. And that can be either really, really good. It can also be very dangerous, right? I'll give you guys an example. Let's just say I meet up with Mike somewhere, right? We're hanging out, and I happen to hit it off really well with Mike. Now, I happen to have, like, on LinkedIn, well, people call me an influencer, but if I happen to talk about Mike and about my meeting with him, and I happen to say good things about him, that's great. But what if in every conference after that, I meet up with Kenny, and just for some rhyme or reason, for odd reasons, I don't like Kenny, right? Now, as an influencer with a following, I have this responsibility to be careful what I say. But do influencers really care? They don't, right? They go around and they say things what they want, and they can even say things that can malign your business tremendously because they have a following. So there is a dark side. So are we Jedi or are we Sith? That's really what we talk about, right? I mean, I love the fact that we get into the details. I love the fact that we get into technicalities at these conferences. But I also feel like there's a gap in the market where people aren't talking about humanizing the industry with real benchmarks, right? With real third party. Look at the human aspect before you get obsessed with the tech, right? That's just my opinion. Maybe we can expand on it.
So when it comes to third parties, are we referring to like third-party insights, reporting agencies?
No doubt, absolutely.
Give us some examples.
Sure. Okay. Actually, it's a great addition to Kenny. So thanks for bringing that up, because I was just having a conversation with Krabako, Siddharth, who's the CEO of Krabako. Now, in case any of you don't know, Krabako is almost like I call it I wouldn't say a policing agency, but I talk more like an intelligence agency that does audit reports on a variety of different crypto and blockchain offerings in the market. And I was talking to Dushan as well. Dushan was on a panel earlier. Now, Dushan runs an ecosystem called iBlock Capital. And what he's done is, because he matchmakes between VC funds and startups and all these things, he's actually bringing Krabako into his ecosystem, right? Where affiliate marketing is no longer about adding just currency, but it's also about building legacy. What do I mean by that? The more people that go through Krabako within iBlock Capital's ecosystem, the more likely there will be more credibility, because Krabako will make sure they're in from 112 parameters. How many parameters do you have, right? They use an S&P Moody model, completely unbiased, and they rank that whole offering on the basis of that and create intelligence and due diligence. So I think that's an example of how affiliate marketing or crypto affiliates need to start thinking about beyond just the bottom line and think about building trust, right? Build impact and trust before you talk about just building your paywalls. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel about it.
All right. So credibility, reputation, a lot of due diligence is quite important. Mike, we talked about bias. Tell us more about that pineapple you brought over.
Sure. So it seems that a lot of the discussion about credibility is how do we get credibility, and in that respect, I believe that educating the market is a big challenge for this industry. It's what I'm hearing also from Dushan as well. And this pineapple is about education, and this pineapple is talking about how crypto and pineapples are actually very similar. And that's an amusing idea. But this pineapple, which I purchased this morning, cost me about $1.50. Now, if you were to purchase this pineapple in Europe or in the States 300 years ago, this same pineapple would be worth $8,000 US. And it's interesting to understand why it would be so valuable. And the reason is very simple. It was impossible to grow pineapples in Europe and in the United States 300 years ago. They were so scarce that people would rent pineapples and walk around at events with them as a status symbol. And in that respect, cryptocurrency is the same. Cryptocurrency gains its value by the promise of being scarce. Now, that's a very difficult idea to understand when it's an abstract. But when you tell somebody that a cryptocurrency is like a pineapple and you tell the story relating to what you were saying before, all of a sudden it becomes much easier. And then the question is, as an influencer, as somebody who's got a voice, how are you carrying your voice, how are you using your voice to educate the audience with information that is valuable, useful, and expanding this industry?
That's quite interesting. Are you, as an influencer, are you creating scarcity? Are you providing real education to the industry? So where is that education coming from? First of all, I personally believe that they need to be very educated about the technology itself. And also, I feel like there is not enough emphasis on the reporting agencies out there providing real solid insights rather than the performance of a project, of a price. What exactly is that project working on, right? Who's their solid partners? Look at their GitHub, you know? There's actually reporting agencies that covers all these, you know? So we only have about maybe like 20-ish minutes left in this conversation. But one of the things I also wanna ask Uchka is when it comes to building out the ecosystem currently, you guys are one of the 3 listing providers of Bittrex. Can you tell us more about the history behind that?
Okay, so about 3 weeks ago, Bittrex Global announced a token referral program partnership. So 3 companies were chosen, and we are one of the 3, and we basically get to do the coin listing and review process for Bittrex Global for the projects to get listed there. And well, basically the history behind is that we chose Bittrex as our partner exchange. Well, not we chose them, they chose us. So it's because they are very compliant in every way. They actually spend the extra budget just to be compliant, and then you know, they take regulations very seriously. And I think AJ raised a very good issue of responsibility. Nowadays, right before the panel discussion, I just checked the adjusted volume on CoinMarketCap, and Bittrex was ranked 98. But still, I think a lot of people would name Bittrex as, I don't know, one of the top 10, 5 legitimate exchanges. And there are so many exchanges where when the responsibility issue comes up, the founders or the top level executives are nowhere to be found. And I think this is a very serious issue, and so that's why I think Bittrex's expansion strategy was to get strong local partners who are compliant in their region to be their partner exchanges, and not just go into any country and then do their own exchange called Bittrex, whatever, right?
Yeah, paying attention to the policy, you know, of various jurisdictions or where they're operating is very important, right? Now, when it comes to policy, Weber, could you expand on that area?
Yeah, because I'm from China, so I can share some policy from China. I said I've started my mining business from 2003. So it's actually China listed the first policy from 2011. And then in 2013, they upgraded for the policy, and in 2017, all of you may know that in September, it's in September 1st, there's a policy very strict to the market. But I will say that that's a good thing for the blockchain industry in China. After 2 years, we see back to the market. We can see the top 20 patent company in the world. More than 10 of them is Chinese company. So we can find that China have some strict policy in exchange and in ICOs, STO, IEO, and other things. And also China is very open to blockchain industry. Yeah. So a policy in China is we look for exchange and ICO that may be very strict, but for the technology for blockchain mining and blockchain chips, and they are all very friendly. So that's what I want to share all of you. Yeah.
So allow us to jump back to the conversation around being responsible, you know, social responsibility, education. I would like AJ to expand on that, you know.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Kenny. So one of the things, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, and this is something that me and Mike were talking about just before we got up on stage. It's really funny how the entire industry has come full circle, because there was a time when cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency advocates and blockchain, and even in other emerging tech like AI and all those places, you had a lot of people talking about how we can be independent, we can go against the system, we can do it on our own. FinTech's entire narrative was about defeating the banks. The banks were enemy number one, right? But look at the full circle. Now we have those same people talking about they get up on stage, we talk about bringing the public sector into the fold. They're the same people who are talking about how important it is to bring the governments and the respective public entities into the fold and make it happen. But it's actually happening in front of my own eyes. I mean, the other day I was talking about it. So at FX1, we have an insurance partner, Lloyd's of London, as well, right? So they help us insure some of the forex transactions that happen on FX1 Markets. And what happens there is Lloyd's of London, for those who don't know, is I don't know, easily over 100 years old as an institution. Now, they spent upwards of $1 million in the last quarter looking to get into the crypto custodian game. Now, a traditional financial institution like Lloyd's of London is now looking at actually putting in actual money into the crypto custodian game. So things are changing tremendously. And the responsibility aspect comes back to this key point about how is it that people are being regulated, not just institutions, but how are people being regulated, right? As an influencer or as a company or as a brand, how do we have third-party audit agencies or third-party agencies in different areas around the world that ensure that whatever value that's being given, whatever information is being disseminated, even on this stage at this very moment, is being disseminated without bias, without an agenda, right? That's so hard to do. So again, it comes back to managing people and not just the tech. I mean, I always tell that to people that, quite frankly, the tech is going to incrementally grow whether you like it or not, because there are always going to be people out there who are putting their time and their mind on the tech. But how many people are actually going out there and evangelizing for good and for creating an industry that has an inclusivity in it, like an ecosystem? How many people are looking into the ecosystem building of it as opposed to just building their own businesses, right? So I think Mike or anybody else want to jump in, guys? Kenny, you want to jump in?
As you're sharing your thoughts here, I'm experiencing like an overwhelming of projects constantly promoting, but what I really care about is how we can become more transparent. How can we really, everyone's talking about mass adoption, how they can bring more users to our industry, but they're not talking about compliance. They're not talking about regulation. Currently, FATF, we talked about this, right? They're gonna require exchanges to start working with custodies, right? But one of the questions I always ask is, there's more and more custodies coming out, but how can we trust a custodian with our digital assets, right? So who's holding them accountable, right? There's blockchain monitoring companies out there. Are we paying attention to them? I don't hear influencers talking about them. Everyone's talking about DeFi, but what is DeFi? Are we ready for complete decentralized finance, right?
And actually, I wanted to add one thing. So what Bittrex is doing is phenomenal, right? And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about the fact that from an empirical listing point of view, you're talking about, 98? Like ranked 98. But between you and me, I'm sure you guys can see this. There's something very wrong with an industry in which people who are trying to do right by the book, people who are trying to actually do things with complete transparency, and they're actually trying to play by the game rules, they end up not being incentivized, and they end up losing market share, as opposed to people who are actually, with all due respect, are cutting corners and are probably doing things that are definitely in the gray, all right? May not be in the black, but definitely in the gray, right? And we see a lot of those top 10 exchanges, without going into names. Just the other day, I was speaking to somebody here in Thailand where they talked about one of the top exchanges in China where they can't find the founders, and they literally just got up and left.
They're in Mongolia.
Yeah, I know, but I don't want to talk about it, right? Gotta be careful. So my point is that, you see what I mean? So are we giving credence to the wrong people? Is it because we don't have the visibility? Like Kenny brought up a great point. are influencers paying attention to the right place? Are they giving voice to the right things in the market? Or are they busy giving voice because they want a check in their pocket? You know, where they're like a kind of like a quickie hire influencer that promotes anything without really knowing what they're talking about. So I completely agree. Education is key.
So we have a few minutes left. You know, what are some of your biggest learning lessons, you know, in this time in Bangkok? Let's start off with Mike.
So I think in relation to what AJ was saying earlier, I think it's very interesting to see how an industry matures. And you know, we all remember our rebellious years as teens when we didn't want to listen to anybody and we knew best, and the last thing we wanted was to hear from the adults in the room. And then later on, you actually appreciate what the adults in the room have to bring to the table. And I think that in this respect, it's very interesting to look at the work that's being done by Dr. Adam Grant. And he is one of the people that has proven empirically what we are all very worried about in this space, which is, am I shorting myself out of profit by doing the right thing and behaving ethically? Am I getting screwed, by being a decent human being? And so what Dr. Grant has proven, and he's I think one of Forbes 40 under 40, is that empirically, in the long game, it by far is more valuable and a better financial game to play to be the good guy in the room, to be a giver, to be an educator. So in the short term, sure, you can screw people over once. But human beings have evolved a mechanism. It's called gossip. We're not talking about who the bad guys in the room are, but everybody knows who they are. They're losing prestige. And if you know anything about marketing, you know that prestige in your name is everything. So the long game is do the good work, get regulated, build your reputation, exactly, and it pays off. You move from 98 upwards.
Okay, AJ, Weber.
When I come here to this room this morning, I was disappointed. Why? Because there's few of audience here, and so far, a lot of audience here. I learned from this thing is next year we will come to Southeast Asia market for our exchange. So I think we should hold and we should wait for the market, not just a very struggle. And maybe in Southeast market, we should wait people, and until they come, we can start our business. And then for the Thailand market, I thought it was very strict to other exchange, so I will want to let Thailand people to register in our exchange. So welcome to know us, but I want to let you Thailand people to our exchange. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry guys to keep talking about Bittrex, but we do represent them in a way, and they're actually so compliant that the regulators in the US are actually listening to them. And when Chinese leader Xi Jinping announced that China is going to take the lead in blockchain technology, the next day, when it was morning in the US, they actually summoned Bittrex guys, and if you guys are interested, what they discussed about was basically if China even partially adopts blockchain, US is going to be behind in everything in 2-3 years. So that's that for Bittrex. And enough statistics about Mongolia. Statistics are like bikinis; they show you a lot, but not everything. So you got to come to Mongolia if you're interested. Hit me up after the panel. Yeah, thank you.
AJ, what have you learned?
What I've learned is probably a reiteration of the fact that a couple of years ago, this professor out of Harvard, Dr. A.J Minai, came up with this framework called IBAC. Right now, IBAC is basically Internet of Things, blockchain, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. And what he hypothesized in his white paper per se was the fact that no one technology, irrespective of how radically awesome it is going to be the standalone innovation point for human life being changed, right? If you talk to me, a lot of people say, if I tell them, I'm in the blockchain space, they immediately jump to crypto, right? Because people have just come to think that, crypto, blockchain, crypto is all it is. But quite frankly, if that's how you think. That's like literally looking at the internet and all you do is email. But the internet is so much more than just emails. Just like the blockchain is so much more than crypto. So as a big picture guy, as a storyteller, as a speaker who goes around different events, I feel like my mission in life has always been the fact to show people that there's a lot more than what you're doing right now, and a lot more can be done, right? And if I think of a bigger ecosystem, I'm really excited about the fact that yes, we're sitting here at a blockchain conference, but I'm equally excited about the artificial intelligence conferences going on with TrestCon right now and the Intercontinental, right? I think people need to expose themselves to more and more different tech angles, not because they want to learn the tech, but because they want to understand how it connects the dots and how it all comes together. So if that's my advice to you, my advice would be to expose yourself to as many different disciplines as possible. I'm not saying become a jack of all trades, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying that you can possibly become a master of many, right? And as a storyteller, I feel like you don't have to know the whole Bible, but you can actually definitely go out there and change the world with a more inclusive thought process. That's just my opinion, right? Yeah, I'd be wrong.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So we got to wrap up here, guys. It's lunchtime. So thank you, everyone.